Well, Dunedin-based MP Michael Woodhouse has been in the news recently for work he's doing to tackle the issue of migrant worker exploitation. The government whip and immigration minister joins us now to give us some background on the issue. Good evening, Michael.
Evening, Callum.
Thanks for joining us. So, tell us, what is the action that you're taking on this issue?
Well, I'm taking two actions. Firstly, I've asked Immigration New Zealand officials, when they suspect a form of migrant exploitation is taking place, to focus their attention on the employer and not the employee, because the employee may be illegal or working beyond the terms of their visa. The second thing I'm doing is that I'm going to amend the Immigration Act to increase the penalties for migrant exploitation and to include them for legal workers. It's already against the law to exploit illegal workers. And there'll be stiff penalties, 7 years in jail, a $100,000 fine, and possibly deportation.
How bad is this problem in New Zealand?
Well, it's a little hard to say, and that's because people are so reluctant to speak up if they feel they're the victims of an exploitive employer. And that's why we're putting our focus on the employer, not the employee. It's a small problem, I think, but it could be growing.
So how has this issue been brought to your attention?
Well, we've prosecuted about half a dozen cases over the last 3 or 4 years, but really this is about anecdotes, particularly coming from the migrant communities themselves, that workers are being exploited, and we've got to take that seriously.
Can you give a real-life example of exploitation?
Yeah, I've had an example in the hospitality industry where a worker has been forced to sign a contract on a minimum wage. It might be a salaried contract, and then being required to work 70 or 80 hours a week, effectively halving the hourly rate. On top of that, they might be being charged for very poor accommodation, even a form of debt bondage, and all of those things amount to forms of exploitation that we've got to keep on top of.
Are there particular areas of the country where it's worse than others?
Well, we know it's taking place in hospitality, so to look at those places where there is a high number of tourists, perhaps Queenstown and Rotorua as an example, also in Auckland where there is a very large number of international students who might be working part-time while they're studying.
What about here locally in Dunedin?
Yeah, hard to say. I wouldn't say that it's not happening, but it's not an area where anecdotes have been brought to the attention of my officials.
So what's the next move for you with this issue?
Well, the instructions to officials have already been passed in respect of what they do for illegal migrants who are being exploited. The next thing I'll do is introduce a bill into Parliament, probably in about a month's time, and I'm hoping that that will be passed into law around March or April next year.
All right. Michael Woodhouse, thanks for being here this evening.
Thanks, Callum.